Hello and welcome. Today we will talk about leadership in diversity, chapter 10. Leadership and power sort of go together along with being able to influence the behaviors of others in our departments, in our teams, in our organizations. So the application of power and influence continues to encourage spirited debate among scholars and captivates leading researchers and practitioners and consultants in the field. There has been many theories regarding the basis of various forms of power across the globe that enables individuals to influence not only a few individuals, but in many cases, hundreds of thousands of people in organizations such as Disney World, Walmart, Microsoft, Google, Yahoo, as well as in political spheres in all of our local cities, national level, as well as international levels. So the core of all these academic theories tend to be the idea that the effect of power and influence are the result of people's perceptions and interpretations of various situations. So power, according to Professors Paul Hersey and Ron Campbell, is the influence potential. In other words, the resource that enables a leader to gain compliance and to gain commitment from others regarding their vision, mission, and specific objectives for, let's say, a day, for a week, a quarter, or a year, or even longer. So some people see power as the capacity to make others do what they would not otherwise do, or their ability to overcome resistance. So that's one view of power. We can view influence as kinetic power. In other words, power and motivation are inextricably linked together in terms of motivation. There are many forms of power, including expert, referral, legitimate reward, coercive, information, connection, personal, and perhaps many other forms as well. However, the key is to use the right form of power in the right places and in the right manner. So let us look at one or two of these and what do they mean. Expert power comes from having knowledge and expertise in a specific profession, field, or area where you are really passionate about. If a follower views his or her leader as being an expert in a specific situation or profession, then he or she will likely be better motivated to be influenced by the person in this case. So it's also possible for followers to have more expert power than leaders in certain situations. Because expert power is attributed to another person, it can help or hurt the leader, depending on how it's perceived by those who are the followers. So losing credibility can irreparably harm the leader's reputation, causing him or her to lose follower respect as well as expert influence. So this type of power is largely a function of the person wielding it and the perception of the follower. When a follower has expert power, he or she requires little to no supervision. So when people are experts in their fields, you leave them alone, simply encourage them, simply motivate them, simply thank them and appreciate their efforts and hard work. Referent power is the influence a person has over another due to the strength of the relationship or the oneness between the leader and the follower. So when a follower views the leader as fair, as confident, as easily approachable, then he or she will want to do a good job. In other words, the motivation to do a good job comes from the fact that he or she has a liking for the leader or the manager or the person who's trying to influence him or her. So referent power must be developed over time. And if a meaningful relationship has not been established between the two individuals, Trying to influence in this way may be viewed as somewhat adversarial. Although referent power can be very strong, it can also hinder work productivity as leaders may be reluctant to discipline poorly performing followers. When discipline is not applied, unfortunately, it becomes a reinforcing mechanism, and others also see this as common practice. So the referent power is a function of both the leader and follower and is democratic in nature. So as you can see from the two forms of power we've discussed so far, there are pros and cons. That's why I mentioned that the right form of power needs to be used at the right time, in right situations, and in the right manner. There's legitimate power, which comes from organizational title and status induced by an internalized value. There's reward power, which is the ability to influence others using items of perceived value. In order for reward power to be effective, the reward must be aligned with something the respondent truly desires, wants, and is motivated by achieving it. Coercive power is the use of negativity, punishment, sanctions, and threats to influence other individuals in the department or those on the team. So this coercive form of power does depend upon what the follower perceives as punishment. Some leaders are reluctant to use this type of power for fear of follower retribution. When coercive power is not exercised, it can lose its magnitude. So if you don't use what you have, chances are you're likely to lose it. Information power constitutes the possession or perceived access to useful information. Employees will work harder for supervisors if they have access to important information that is valued by those employees. According to Dr. Hersey and Dr. Campbell, information power is effective with followers in the above average readiness levels, as they can use this information to improve their performance. Additionally, this power references internalized and lasting changes in the followers' beliefs, attitudes, and values. Connection power is your affiliation power, which is based upon follower perception as well. So people with strong connections are perceived as having the ability to get things done. This type of influence is useful in motivating followers with low readiness levels and may also induce compliance. Personal power is the extent to which followers respect, they feel good about, and are committed to their leader and to which they see their own goals as being satisfied by the goals of the manager or leader in the department or on the team. This type of power base flows up in an organization and is not inherent in the leader. So it can be given and it can be taken away easily. So there are many influence techniques. People who hold power can use a variety of techniques to modify their employees' or followers' behaviors and thereby produce the desired results. Although power is the capacity to cause change, influence is the degree of actual change in a target person's attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors. So influence techniques refer to the mode used to change those behaviors. Influence is an important motivator because it concentrates on interpersonal contact between the two individuals or more in a group, as well as communication. Contacts and communication can lead to belongingness, to security, to social acceptance, as reflected in Abraham Maslow's research. And obviously, belonging is where people feel good about themselves, and eventually they consider the environment to be somewhat inclusionary and equitable. So a breakdown in influence can result in negative consequences such as lack of self-esteem and powerlessness. Researchers like Kipnis and Schmidt have outlined several influence tactics, including rational persuasion, inspirational appeal, consultation, integration, personal appeals, exchange, coalition tactics, pressure tactics, and legitimized tactics, which have been grouped into three categories of hard tactics, which use authority and position power, as well as soft tactics, which rely on personal power, and finally, rational persuasion using logic. Rational persuasion uses logical arguments and facts to influence other individuals. Similar to expert in information power, it will appeal to the followers who perceive data and knowledge as important factors in motivation. Thereby, it can be used with any readiness level. Depending on the readiness levels of your followers, you may actually match your leadership style given the person and situation and use different influence techniques. For example, pressure tactics relate to coercive power and use punishment and fear as motivators. So these tactics will be effective on people with low readiness levels. However, these techniques will only prove effective on people who perceive the tactic to be punishing. The key is not to abuse your power. Use your power and influence at the right times in the right manner, using the right leadership styles. Coalition tactics are used to get a group of people to influence another person's behavior. So one example of coalition tactic could be an intervention for a compulsive gambler or an alcoholic. Acquire expert, legitimate, or position power to make others understand the significance of the event. Referring and personal power may appeal to the cause. The situation will determine which type of leadership style or readiness level is most appropriate for this tactic. Just like we use leadership styles in the workplace to influence and motivate ourselves, our colleagues, and our superiors even, we can use leadership styles at home as well. So do not abuse your power, otherwise teamwork will suffer. Effective leader in any given situation. So how can you be an effective leader? Let us discuss situational leadership styles. Situational leaders are those informal actors who influence and run teams, run departments, run organizations, and even countries across the globe based on certain variables present in any given moment, in any given place. So you lead based on different styles of leadership in accordance with what the follower needs at a given time. Some of these leaders receive the recognition that they deserve in a timely manner. Others, on the other hand, move on and often feel fulfilled that they made a positive difference in the lives of other individuals at the right time and in the right place and in the right manner. So in the behavioral perspective of leadership, there are two clusters of leadership behaviors. One would be people orientation behaviors or relationship orientation, which includes showing mutual respect and trust between you and those you're trying to influence, whether they are your employees, they're your customers, they're your bosses, or they're your family members in any case, depending on the situation. The second cluster of leadership behaviors would be task-oriented leadership styles. Oriented leadership style, you basically tell the employees what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and how fast it should be done by training them, by telling them, and by showing them perhaps. So the situational leadership model is based on the interactive interplay among direction, in other words, providing task orientation type behavior, in socio-emotional support, which is known as the relationship orientation provided by the leader based on the readiness of the follower on specific tasks that needs performing. And readiness basically means how experienced the person is at a given time with regards to the specific task that he or she is assigned to or will be performing. If the person has done the job many times successfully and you have observed this, then the person is at readiness level 4, especially if he or she is motivated to do it and wants to do it. On the other hand, if the person has never done the job, does not know how to do it, and perhaps is not motivated to perform this job because he or she does not know how to do it, then the person is at readiness level 1. So there are basically 4 readiness levels. In readiness level 2 is where followers are unable and willing to perform the task. And readiness level 3 is when followers are able but unwilling to perform the task. In other words, they can do the job, but they're not motivated. It is sort of like asking somebody to pull out your tooth because it's hurting a lot. If it's a dentist, then she or he would be at readiness level 4 or 3, because just because he or she knows how to do it doesn't mean they want to do it, especially if you're not paying them for the functions that they're performing or if they don't have the right equipment. So on the other hand, if you ask an average person who does not have any medical training to pull out your tooth, he or she would not be willing to do it and may not have the ability or motivation to do it at any given time. So in general, if you're a task-oriented leader, then you provide step-by-step directions. It has top-down communication, and you're setting goals for your employees or those you're trying to influence. In other words, the followers. On the other hand, if you're high on relationship orientation, then there's joint communication, and you provide socio-emotional support, and you're being supportive as a coach, as a mentor, as a leader, as a guide for those you're trying to influence or those or your employees. This is where the concept of diverse situation comes in. Diverse situation represents diversity management combined with situational leadership skills to integrate objective criteria for the followers' development. So diverse situation claims that the effective management of diversity should be approached based on the unique personal characteristics, values, beliefs, needs, desires, wants, and skills of each person. When we're using objective criteria in the workplace to assess, to promote, to hire individuals, we're not basing our decisions based on a person's skin color, gender, or other diversity dimensions. We're simply assessing him or her based on qualification for doing the job. And that is what diverse situation basically means. So diverse situation provides a structure and the ability to objectively treat people as respected human beings, regardless of their race, regardless of their ethnic background or gender or skin color or disabilities, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, body size, age, and other characteristics, whether they're protected or not. When we're using situational leadership styles of telling, selling, participating, and delegating, followers are analyzed and diagnosed based on their skills and levels of readiness to perform a specific task or job. With regards to promotions, hiring, and performance appraisals, one's employees or colleagues are not viewed in terms of their race, ethnic background, or skin color, or gender, or body size, or sexual orientation, religion, or other non-job related factors. So employees are instead seen as unique human beings and individuals that operate under a specific readiness level for each task. The readiness level is objectively assessed and addressed through applying the appropriate leadership styles of telling, selling, participating, or delegating as needed. When it comes to diversity in leadership, the fundamental purpose of management is to create value as perceived by the follower. So leaders influence people to get the job done according to the vision and mission that you have outlined for them. Leaders should be able to address conflict, tolerate uncertainty, manage diversity, embrace change, identify values, maintain accountability, use feedback, and balance power in the relationship with those that they're trying to influence. Successful leaders also have a degree of charisma that makes people want to follow them. The key to successfully managing diversity is capitalizing on these human skills. Distinguishing characteristics with humanistic leaders include trustworthiness, sensitivity, and active listening. So good leaders not only are effective coaches, but they're also good listeners and good conflict managers in interpersonal relationships. So situational leadership skills can be used to influence any follower, regardless of his or her age, language, position, power, ethnicity, or religion. The three basic competencies of leadership are relevant when combining situational leadership with diversity management, which means you have to diagnose, which would include addressing followers' readiness in task. Adapting would include modifying your behavior as a leader to match followers' readiness level in the specific task. Communicating would include promoting understandable and acceptable processes. It should be noted that cultural awareness and sensitivity effectively integrated with situational leadership skills can enhance a leader's personal power and improve team productivity in any economy, in any workplace. The skills and capacity development of people in both the public and private sector of the country can go a long way in strengthening the government and preparing the culture for effectively reaping the benefits of a market-based economy, especially if you have a democratic environment and a capitalistic structure. Ultimately, remember that people do not leave bad jobs. They often leave bad bosses who are ineffective and use their influence and power and position power in the wrong way. So keep your employees by having a strong character and developing your personal and referent forms of power instead of using your position power or coercive power at all times. Remember, sometimes we need to help people change. Of course, everybody wants change, but oftentimes we see resistance when we want people to change. In other words, to be role models of it. So we as leaders need to ask ourselves, how can I be an effective leader? So once you have determined the best leadership style based on the readiness of the follower for a specific task, then coach him or her, help him or her, and be yourself and be all that you can be by standing confidently tall. General Norman Schwarzkopf once mentioned leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. If you must be without one, be without the strategy. So who you are in your character is very important for effective leadership in any situation. Remember that through equity and inclusionary practices, we can make diversity an advantage for ourselves, for our teams, and for our organizations using appropriate leadership styles based on the readiness levels of the followers for a specific task. And when a follower is assigned a different task, we may have to use a different leadership style. Good luck.